Colorado Chin Baptist Church Krifa Bumi Pivial Te Kutza Katlaina Min Som He Hun Karontel Te Hi Longlom Nak Tampi Kade. I've been asked to speak in both English and Mizo, so I will swap between the two as much as I can today. So I will try and make this PowerPoint. So I've prepared a PowerPoint today. So if you can help me with that PowerPoint. So kids, I know it's Children's Day today. Do you want me to do a long speech or a short speech? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I realized that today is Children's Ministry, and I'm so grateful that I can have a chance to speak at such an important, special program. When I hear a testimony, so I want to tell you a little bit about who I am, how I grew up, and why I'm here today. So yeah, that is the start of the PowerPoint. So raise your hand, especially the kids. If you've been anywhere outside of the US. Yes? Good. Myanmar kal tozong na pangakan. Nakal sialaw niyang harsat na kanto chang pei chuan tu na buai na nasada kanto ka chuwang chuan zin te porem chang lu tuk lo lai te poni the. So I want to tell you how I grew up. I was born in Durtlang. Does anyone know where Durtlang is? It's in Mizoram, which is in the northeast of India. That's where I was born. And then I only stayed there as a baby, maybe for 3 months. So my mom and dad were missionaries. Sinot Mission Board, Presbyterian Church, missionary ni Vangin asama ka ngalani. So I wasn't actually living in my home. So I moved to Assam, and then we moved to Delhi. Delhi of Nain Shiam. Delhi is the capital city of India, so that's a very popular, New Delhi is very popular. Then I actually lived in the US for just under 2 years. Michigan akom trinani. Michigan om na kan Shiam. Michigan akom trina jiang baklo nya. Colorado hi ka home. Colorado is my home. So I want to talk about that a little bit today. So US so I moved to Kolkata, which is also another city in India. Then I went back to Mizoram for 1 year. I did my schooling for 1 year there. After that, we moved to England. Does anyone know where England is? Yeah, okay, I've got hands back there, really confident hands. Okay, so England too, kan sianga. So like in Munga heta US lam oma, heta India oma, alai takahian right in the middle, the small island that we've pointed to, that's where England is. And that's where I spent 10 years of my life. Kumsom, mirang, English housinga, kaoma tatatuan, and trong te kanzira. I did all of my studies there. So from class 8 till my master's degree, I completed in the UK. England ayan kazir na tamzok kazirta. And that's where I started questioning myself. Everyone said, okay, by the color of my skin and by the language that my parents spoke, I am Mizo. Lai haka kanitin nang mani nininringa nga infati point zirtirang. But do they identify themselves as Lai haka? Or do they identify with the culture that they're in as well now? Tunayin infati an selian zela nga layan nina haka nina ka chin nina ka are taktak don lo ma say they will always have a question of identity. That no matter how long they stay here, no matter how much they are American, chin nina ka bo chuang silawatiro. Right? You can be American, you can have citizenship here, but how much of an American are you, and how much of a Chin are you, and can you be both? And I always used to have this question. So I have an English name called Julie. I don't go by it anymore. Julie ti min kau khan, hey, sap riyaw na khatel chin ni chu. Ka sap na ka Julie khan aron por chuak ta ma se ka mizom min chu Mafeli ni. And I always used to pick and choose who can call me what. So sap in Julie mintinga, mizawin Mafeli mintiang. Okay? So my identity, I always struggled with who I was. And then I lived in England for 10 years. Kumsom ka oma, was I British? I could speak a little bit like them. I could teach them. I learned. I had the same sort of education as them. I was probably one of the best students there. Masik hang kanin kani naka anem hitwang lo ni so zone ka nga thei to ka. So I really struggled with my identity. And then somebody told me at some point while I was studying my bachelor's degree that I was a third culture kid. TCK ti trong kami kan shitong ayem. Helam tlar zong malam zong deu tho hi le helam tlar ma ho tu na senior kan ti thleng TCK kids inni. Oh, in shelo mai thei third culture kids omzia kan shil cheunga. So third culture kid is somebody that has lived majority of their life outside of their parents and grandparents' upbringing. Omzia chu Myanmar, Burma, animo Mizoram animo kami life kashemang lavin, helta America life kashitiang zokin, masinule pale kan pile pute tradition le culture kashitiam vek thausi in confusion nei boxi claim in shatiam deu hetlam shatiam deu bo kami cho pol identity nei tekha third culture kit kan ni tikha means your tirtani. So I fitted in the TCK. So I was like, okay, I feel like I'm one of the British people. My friends are all white and all, different races. But I felt that part of me was very mizo because my parents were very mizo. Mo, mizo trong tiam mangai, mizo trong tiam lo joanin, azathak. Mo, kaka nule pa in zir tir tu na tepo in zir tir na sa, but they are growing up in a culture that is only speaking English. And they sometimes might not necessarily want to learn Hakka language. To me, culture is another changtani. And that's where I want to talk about identity. When I turned 17, 18, and I love Jesus. I was a Christian. I am a Christian. In fact, po Christian kan niti so ansoy ringa. But I was in a culture that didn't care much about Jesus. US Sulazia, England sumo. My friends can tell you all about it. We had to start talking to people. We did ministry, and we had to start from the beginning. Who is Jesus? Katiang environment kan say liana. So being a Christian in that environment was so tough. It was so tough. And I didn't like being a Christian sometimes because, trong trai te, chian te, bula ka trong trai chin te, iswa chan chin soy te ka, klep chan zat lag ve don, in zak chinem. Has anyone prayed out loud in front of your non-Christian friends? Those hands were raised and then they went down straight away. It's so difficult being part of a culture where you know that Jesus is not necessarily as celebrated as within your family, within your, the comfort of our community. And that's what I always struggled with. So I went to college, black sheep type, do heka kosani, tumo. Do na heta alcohol te, mani te, chishang shanga or tear kamo. Or they were victor English. So I probably struggled with all of those things. Maybe not the drugs bit, okay? So drugs and you have to accept in pomangai, in now pangte in fate, they are growing up in a culture which is going to be very different from the four walls, from the church walls that you bring them to every Sunday. So because it's a little bit embarrassing. How can I help them understand their identity, understand who they are? Struggle because ka-outgoing book siya. So, the first thing that my mom and dad taught me, and somebody read it at the beginning when they stood here, Proverbs 22:6, I think, bring up a child in the way that they should go, and when they are older, they will not depart from it. So what you're doing right now, tunay intil di poy mo lutok, so important. They might not understand everything and accept everything right now, but they will grow up, and when they are older, it's a promise of God, they will not depart from it. So mi wang chang ke po khang nun zong khatem ve maila zu te po heta relationship te po elo tikwal tu maila kapuitlin nuwa chuan kanule pa tong trai na le kanule pa ina pathia nan tri tlat na le an tong trai le theito pa Sunday school mi shwai na khan ra ade voina in ma ka din theina chani chumi wang chani pathian chu fakinom ro se so wang chuan my first identity that I needed to accept before I accepted that I was Mizo, I was British, I was with the Vai, and I sometimes the Vai used to call me Nepali, and or I had a word for it in England. They used to call me Chinky all the time. Yeah, you might have heard of that one as well. I started to question myself, who am I? But my one identity that I became so sure of, that nobody could take away from me, and that I didn't have a question about, was my identity in Christ. Patian fa kani. Patian fa kani tiang ole. I am a child of God, and that's one thing I was so sure of. We have the right to become children of God when we believe in the name of Jesus Christ and we accept Him as our Savior, and we have the promise of eternal life and a life that we can live to the full because of Jesus. And when I understood that, kami ka siya tiyan nuwa, kami te infada na siya tiyan nuwa, zan mo nunom ziyan siya tak antem tak chodona ni. I'm not saying it's not important to understand that we are Hakalai Mizo. Masahemi identity and siya masaklaw chuan mo. Tunay til ti poy molto. So my calling, I was like, okay, I understand my calling. I turned 18. I was like, I'm going to follow Jesus, and I'm going to talk about Jesus to my friends, my colleagues, where I used to work. So so 18 years old, so so can we go to the next slide, please? Loads of pictures of me. Okay. So up there, so me in the blue shirt, I was 19 years old, and I was leading a conference where there were 8,000 people in the audience. Yeah, I know, 8,000. That's a lot of people. It was really, I was scared. I was playing the guitar. I barely knew how to play, but I was very confident because I love Jesus. And whatever I did, I knew Jesus was happy. And that identity kind of helped me. There were about 20 different nationalities: Korean, Welsh, Indian, and then to the left, where I'm wearing the black dress, I'm holding that white thing, that was my ordination. So I got ordained when I was 23 years old. Pastor Mafeli kanitani. Oh, patian kakazuya, patian tuka oya, teitop katswa, taraula makachanga. And so they said, we need a pastor. And you're young, you can speak to the young people, so we're going to ordain you. So I finished my bachelor's in theology, and for 6 months I was trained and I was ordained as a pastor. I gave marriage counseling at 23, and I had no idea like what to say, but I did it because it was part of my job. So I was 22 at the time, and they're all men. You know, we know about church and how men are more prominent in many churches, but I was always one of those women that spoke, that was so bold, and I wanted to just be so obedient to God. Hey, formation college, so I was the admissions officer at a college, and I was doing so many things for God. I felt like I was really living my life for Jesus. So I was a pastor at a church. I was preaching regularly. I was also teaching, tutoring, and I was working for Mission full-time as well. So I wore so many hats, and I was very tired all the time, but I felt like I'm doing the right thing for God. And it wasn't that it wasn't productive. And what you're doing now is so helpful, is so fruitful for the life of the children. About identity, is my story about how I went back to Mizoram in 2017. I grew up all of my adult years, all my, childhood years outside of Mizoram. And Dad had this crazy calling, right? And he said, Mizoram akahodon. I need to preach about Jesus to Mizoram. Who needs to hear about Jesus in Mizoram more? This is a Christian state. Like, we have so much to do here. We have so much to tell. Like all the non-Christians, all the non-believers, we have to tell them about Jesus. Dad was like, no, I've got a calling for Mizoram. Mizoram siyam chatangay tini. So, we thought he'd gone a bit crazy because we were doing so much fruitful work for God in England, and going back to Mizoram was not, it just didn't make sense. But he did it. He was so passionate about it. So we let him go in 2016. And in 2017, while I was praying and I was asking God about the next direction of my life, but and that was one of the biggest challenges I've ever faced in my life, because yes, these are my people. They speak a language that I understand. They look like me. But I didn't understand the culture. I couldn't resonate with what they, like how they did stuff, like church especially, very traditional church. And I like this free form of church where I could worship God with my hands raised and clapping and, Mizoram akatsana dangde, so it's very different back home. Anyway, so because I prayed about it and I felt like God was telling me to go back and support my dad, that's what I did. And that's where God gave me a new calling, and that's what I want to share with you about Zoram Tar. I'll explain that picture a bit later. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I went back to Mizoram, and I was in Aizawl. I was engaged at the time. Some of you might have heard about my testimony. Pasal na ikatuma. Kala no pangang masi pasal na itakakadua, move on na England akan settle ka nito. So when I got back, I was like, what am I doing here, God? It's like I'm supporting Dad, okay, but I want to be really fruitful in the few months that I'm here. So I'm katlem te so kanay katya ka chong chaya chuan Aizawl min khir tira nito. If you've been to, how many of you have been to Mizoram? Yes. Aizawl hi Zana kan pastor yan khir tem. Zana light zong zongaron on a mountain zakan and clear. It's beautiful. And that's when I went up to the roof. We had a flat roof at the time, and I was praying, and I was like, God, why am I here? It makes no sense, and I don't know what I'm doing. I can barely speak Mizo properly. And so suddenly, like this overwhelming presence of God came, and I just started crying at the rooftop. And I just heard God say, save my people. Like, they're Christians. What do they need? What else do they need? They go to church. The church is always packed full. And, when I got that calling, that I had to stay there. And I was engaged. And I wanted to go back to England and do, whatever I was doing and continue that. It was so clear that God had called me back for a reason, and I was to stay there. Long story short, engagement broke off, and I went full-time in this ministry, in this calling. And I couldn't deny that this was God telling me to give up everything and to pursue God. And so many people used to pray for me at the time. They were like, you are called like Esther. You know the story of Esther? Yes? Good. Esther ko naka lalpan min ko aniti. She was in a foreign land as a Jew, and she had to sacrifice her life to save her people. That was the story, you know it. And the calling that Dad received was that of Nehemiah, who was also in a foreign land. He was called back to his people to build and reform and heal Jerusalem again. And we realized as daughter and father, father and daughter. And as a family, we were called to do work in Mizoram. I didn't know yet, but we started going from village to village. We got involved in everything in Mizoram. YMA, I got involved in church. I got involved in everything I could so that I would be seeped in the culture and understand everything. And that's when I woke up. One time I went to this YMA conference, and I don't mean to talk about Mizoram in a bad way, but it'll be a very similar experience for the Chin community as well. Kondom te khao noi chwa ta khan mo John an trong kama bole an rui na sa thin box ya. I had men coming up to me, pulling me, and I was like, isn't this guy Christian? Like, aren't these meant to be a group of Christians that go to like a Christian conference, and they're here at a YMA conference acting like hooligans? And I was like, what is going on? So, okay, that was one experience. And then I went to church, and I used to converse with my Christian friends, and the stuff they used to talk about. I was like, these conversations aren't conversations we should be having as Christians. I don't want to go into detail about what we used to talk about. Christianity nena Christian label kane masika thuak le ka tharau le ka ril ruwa Christa lal to lo. I am a Christian by label, but Jesus wasn't the king of their hearts, their minds, and their soul. There's a difference between being a Christian by name and truly becoming a follower of Jesus. And that's what I want the kids to grow up to understand. That there is no meaning coming here, worshiping every day, doing these loud songs when they can just be noise to God. Just noise, loud noise. You can come here and you can do the action song to a background Christian song. You can do drama that your teachers taught you. But if you don't understand and accept and fully connect with what you're doing and worshiping God through it, it's pointless. Chuwang chuan khami kha Mizoram problem ani ti ka mu khan pathian kan ka chuin kan faka kan thinlungin kan faksi lo ti ka mu khan lalpa zoram kan harangai ti in min ko hona chan kha ka shetani. So I was called for such a time as this to wake people up, to understand that this world is such a dark place. It needs Jesus, but the people that are meant to be preaching Jesus also need Jesus. Chuwang chuan in I was like, this is what I'm going to do full time. Stopped working. So I earned a good amount of money in England. I was like, I'm not going to work. I can't work and do this at the same time, so I stopped working. And then, obviously, relationship-wise, because there were no relationships, okay? Next slide, please. I understood also that there was another layer to my calling. Everyone has a personal calling, personal relationship with Jesus. But I also started understanding that Mizo, Chin, Kuki, Paite, Mar, Dangralte, Mivang. All of these people that have the same ancestry, worship the same God, also have the same problem. Okay? We're all struggling with this very, very similar things. And that's way before the problem happened in Myanmar as well. So I understood that there is a national calling as well. And this is something that when I started understanding this, I truly understood the value of being Zolanu, Zonula. Mizo di trong kam hi lai chin hi ahuap lo ti tam ta kanoma wangin mizo ti ngot kampang lo nga zo ni hi chin lun chuak ni hi pathian ina zo fa te kan ni na hi special takin min da ani ti kha Patiani Mishia Tardir Bokanitu. Acts 17:26 says, from one man he made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. And this is something I really want us to take home today. Okay? England ka ahmatsuan Christian Ramani. Kan siya tiro? US po. We're still trying. You know? Trump is still trying in his own way. England po katyang kan patian tu ka kovel zong zong shilder. The only reason we became Christians in Myanmar po, it was because of foreign missionaries, right? Patian tu miron shila vangkan, and their appointed time in history they fulfilled. At namangin, aramangin. Mase tuna chon England su patian ing tawag man titolo secular state secular ram kan nintia tunan ram din muntlak chiat na sadjai kan mutiro. Same with this country. Tuvanson, it says a nation that turns away from God, they face discipline. The hardships that we're facing, not just in the US, masa England na patian hoisan shim. Tuna Mizoram po patian tu kan say masa kan hoisan na sal tuka kan ramin kan tuarani. So I realized that as a people, you know, there are no other nations. Kapwani kasiyam chalok don. Tumitong sa hekalaw manglok. Hello. Oh. That understand the importance of mission as much as our people. Mission ngai event le ngai sakan ram klukan kan nam klukan nom lo zo fa de kluka ve nom lo ma se kan lashil thailo. They don't see it in us. I want to ask some of the youth now as well. I'm looking right to the people in front of me, all the ones wearing black. How many times have you talked about Jesus with a non-believer? Have you ever? 1, 2, 3. One of them is just saying, I don't think no one email kup mai tiro. The people that are meant to be, we are responsible, we are ordained for that purpose as a nation, as a people. Mase tuna hian kan kalsan na salito. Chubacha namangin ramangin lalpan min ko chuak dua kan politics siam chatatum kan ko shan kalphung siam chakat atum ti zong samin mutir ta ka khan. I was like, I'm going to do everything I can in my power to tell the people to wake up. Sim tak turin tu ka muntina. You will not imagine the amount of times. As a young lady, I was 25 when I started. We used to go to every street. It was like scorching hot. It was pouring down with rain. It didn't stop me because God gave me so much passion. We used to go to like Tingklang in Kaltometia. Some of you have never been to villages. And you know, it's not as advanced as it is here in the US. So we used to go from village to village. We used to cover like 3 or 4 villages a day. And I used to preach about an hour. I used to sing about 2 or 3 songs in every area. And I used to tell them about the fact that our nation is going downhill and we need to wake up and we need to change our ways. We need to start worshiping God in like truly. So that's what I did. And that's what I've been doing for the past 7 years. And I'm not about to stop. Politics sa atin mang, politics sa atin kazuang lut, because I knew the corrupted form of politics. Kapa, Reverend Dr. Mafeli Hlawndo, kami akaw na don ka politics siyam chatangay te, so I went crazy. Parties dulavin, independent lalpatan kanding. Like I'm standing in politics for Jesus. You can say that, and what you do can be another thing completely. Okay? Masigin to radical to kan kaltap. You know how we used to do our campaigns? Campaign turing karon lut amo antia kan chong chai cheat. We used to go into house to house and they're like, "Oh, do you want votes from us?" And I'm like, "No, we just want to pray for you." So you can vote for the right person. They're like, "Aren't you going to be contesting? Are you going to be running for office as well?" "Yeah." "Did you want me to vote for you?" Like, just ask Jesus. I felt like at the time we were doing something so crazy and radical. Masilalpan malasom. So the political landscape is starting to change a lot in Mizoram as well. And then third and most important, I guess, for the part that I'm going to be sharing today is national identity. National identity, Kabuay puitani too. And then I realized, oh my gosh, who are the people that God has called? Is it just the Mizo people in Mizoram? No. There were so many more people, and I started realizing this when I started understanding about Myanmar, Manipur, Tripura, Bangladesh, and all of our people dispersed among all these different nations and administrations. And then God did something. You can say the enemy did it, but I feel like God is actively a part in the suffering that we're going through as a people. Myanmar ron buaitani. Military coup ron thenga. Diktak chuanchin community kan hausak liber, kan chat liber, kan successful liber niyang. So I know some of the ministers that were elected numwani temo pulyan luayate. And that problem came, and then Manipur ron buailea. We know about the Manipur struggle as well, as our community versus the Meitei and Ibermai. And then what happened? They sought refuge in Mizoram. All started coming. And then I realized, okay, God, you're doing something. And can we go to the next slide, please? This is Zofate National Monument. Down there, you can see, we erected 12 different stones. Lai nam karing ko tapo tam tako machung singa chan Hlawndo potela. Chuan chuan mani apo thu ka soina khanin Hlawndo chu lai nam zinga tel ka tia kha. An lo achen ka chuan an ngai thebak lova. Masi it's the truth. My mom is Mar, and in that way I'm very much Mar. And then Mizoram ako mawangin, I'm very much Mizo. But I realized that all of these different tribes, clans, sub-clans were just divisions caused by administrations that we were divided in. And I realized we're just all the same people. We all have the same ancestry. We all serve the same God. And what the enemy is doing is dividing us. Lai holte kalo thiam manglava. Duna lusei dulian kan ti mizo trong in thiam mang tolava. Kang division of wang administration shang shang wang kain chen mai ni ti ka siat khan lalpan kapa asyati rangin Zofate National Monument Zofate nam lungphun ka aphun tirtani. And I can't go into detail because I don't have enough time today. I'm only going to be speaking for like 2-3 more minutes. Chuwang chuanin kami kha there are 3 books that he's published so far about how our common ancestor is Zo. Not the Mizo Zo. Oh, Zo from the Bible. Lai history, Gangte history, Guite history, Lusei Dulian history, all traces back to the same ancestor, Zo. Okay? Kami Zo ka Dizo titen, Yo titen, shangin kan lo soi china. Sap trong chuan, Joseph. Ti ani ti kakapain tharau le research mga mutswa kan because there's at least 1,000 generation gap between that Zo and Kipmang, which is the next ancestor that we know about. Kipmang, we all share that in common as well. Zo le Kipmang kara thousands of generations omani tuan, that Zo needs to be traced back right to the Bible. So what's a kapatuan Josephatu le fa kanni. Joseph Zoat Hatevik Kaniti Ka, Heta Israel identity Jankan, Lalpanahu Swatirani. I know when I start talking about Israel, people will be like, is this another like cultish movement that are trying to convert everybody back to Judaism? Please don't be afraid about that. It's not. Masikan history, kan identity siya siyanan Bible, ya poy mo emanete. Siya tangaya vangin. Lai Autonomous District Council, Mara Autonomous District Council, MZP, MUP, Minister, Shang Tekhan, they signed a common identity referendum saying we are Zofate, we agree that we are descendants of Joseph and that we are one people and we can do ministry and we can do mission as one people. And then the problems happened. We started Mizoram Apokong Kan Zoa, that was me up there. with my banner. It had lots of, this is on Google, by the way. I took it from Google. We are Zofate, one ancestor, one people, one nation, chosen nation for God's kingdom's government. Tiaka, patian laram din na tur tiaka, kando nangin tiangyan kan kalkwaltani. And next, please. Our pastor shared a little bit. I was probably involved in almost all the charity concerts for Myanmar. So one of the first ones we did, gospel charity concert for Myanmar. Internationally, kanti khan ka hosta. Chuan in help charity concert kanti khan ka host lea 2021 ania. Chuan pray for Camp Victoria kain lo shai mo sai lo nu te ho ne kanti akhan katapon ka host lea. Chuan tun nai lo ka Mizoram ral tla ti chungchang soi ho na MZP organize kha ke ma host thawani. And I didn't ask to ever be part of this. I never asked to be a celebrity in Mizoram. That was never my aim. I just wanted to follow God and I just wanted to be obedient. Masep lalpan rematita. All the loss, all the pain, all the laughing, all the musitna that I went through. You know, preaching in the streets is not very, cool. So as a young person, I had to endure all the people making fun of me, thinking I'd gone crazy, leaving a good job in England and doing this full time. Sometimes I had like $2 in my pocket, and I used to try and live off that for like a few weeks. Hey, aharsa, I cried many times. I'm not saying I'm like super, super strong. I'm very soft. I was just obedient to it. I knew that God was doing something amongst our people, and He was trying to do something amazing, but the people needed to wake up, and I needed to lose some to gain for other people. So when I kang zong sang halal pan min da tu na chuan Mizoram ma chuan milar kan ni very ngot to mo. Nani chuan min shalo mai the ma se kan lar vel to Mizoram ma chuan mo. Charity concert kan tia. I used to go around to different refugee camps. We ka chap na salat to kan interview mo anjong ka kasithiam no to book silo, but I just used to look at their conditions and I used to cry about it a lot as well. So an kapani kan trong pa articles te kan zia ka tikhan. And now you might be hurt sometimes by what you hear on social media, like refugees and nok tiang zong mo, like social media. But don't be disheartened. God is doing something amazing beyond that. So van so kan tor po hi mal som na chang chin. Lo tuar chang shang ro. What na if you're gonna go down the route of hate, discord, division? That's what the enemy is doing. God is trying to unite our people, and hence everything that is happening right now. Unite. John 17, the whole of John 17 is Jesus' prayer saying, be one, unite so that I can be glorified. That's what the Lord is doing in our people, in our community, and the enemy is doing the opposite. In chender min obetum in rirulautina tosu min mangai Mizorama Zofatian min mangai kan lom ti tlatro in lom ti po kan sia ke ni pon kan mangai cheu chuwang chan thei to choin tu na hian ral tlan kan ti te hi ral tlan ke chang ka ti phal si alawa unau te kan zofa unau te hi kan in enkol ton ani. Next slide please. And this is the last project that's going on right now. I think Pastor received our letter. Maybe you haven't yet. Mase Zofate Patian Biakinpui is the next big project that's happening in Mizoram. And this is the last bit I want to talk to you about. Tuna hian Mizoram project lian tak lalpan minti tir me ka chu Zofate Patian Biakinpui hinia. This is the first time a church is being built. That's not Presbyterian, that's not Methodist, that's not Baptist. That's not salvation. It is for all. Now, how does that work? Tumanin, Pastor, pakatan o mga non-denominational ni Don Mino. This is a mission center, and I want to talk to you about how big it's actually going to be. Seats at hungan, 30,000 people leng turin kansadon. It will be the biggest church in the world. Okay? So this is not just a small project to unite our people in one way or another. This is what God is doing to unite our people, to say, as Zofate, as Chin, Mizo, Lai, Kuki, Mara, Mar, this is our national church. You know what Modi is doing? Sabtong ka soy lawang yon law ngai thale pala. Modi upon Ram temple sa ni lomi tiro. Secular state secular country Mizof Rama zofa tetan zo na thak zong song ina kanta kanti theitur. Whether you're Presbyterian, Baptist, UPC, this is something we can call our national church, and it will be a global mission center. Pathian chanchin tra kan shil theina tur, tourists kan hip theina tur mun puyani donani. So that's why we're doing fundraising at the moment. Awareness kan ron nei pazela, chuan church tam takin 2,000, 1,000 and $1,000 and ron sunglut mulani. And I'm just seeing the unity that's happening amongst our people even through this project is so encouraging. So what's on mission titur chuan ril rumun khat putangai. Moi big si billa changin pathian tu shila harlutuk. Oh, because tuna te po kan identity India ringot te pon min sha tan tum hian kan identity himo so enzat nge om. Mas national identity kan nei huna chuan chanchin trai kan shil tak theidon ani ti lalpan min mu ti rani. So wa chang kha kha ka thu top ni mai se nationalism versus racism ti ka tel kher tu na chan chu kan nationalist tu khian mo nam dang hin leng lo thina. So wa chan it's not about that. We're going to unite to preach the good news to be a blessing for other nations. Okay? It's not about we're going to be separate from them. It's about understanding our collective identity, our collective calling to be a blessing to all other nations. Chu kasoi thei tok ni mai sela pathian hian tuna hian thil ro pui tak chin community a te po atimek ti kasya. It's crazy. Indiana has become Chindiana. More. There are 90 churches that belong to Zofate. But if we can use this opportunity to understand our calling as a people, to preach the good news to the outside world, not just within our community. Tuna hian kei mani aring ko thian kan tuilo to kang ti ka lao o mission ti turin dal pan min ko. Bo te chan chuak turin kami mission heart ka in fa ten an nei lo chuan they will just be Christians in this church and not in schools. Okay, they'll forget to do that outside of the church walls. Tu wang chuan pathiani mangai tak taka midang chanchin trashil poimo zia in zir tir chuan they will not depart from that, and they will be a blessing. They will be a source of healing and hope for those that are lost right now. Chu kan personal calling le kan national identity kan national calling ani ti sia in zofati in tum khatang o lalpa ta ni thok khawang ti kha ka sei thei tok ni mero se lalpan kan zata ma sono se